Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here this morning. Always love the opportunity to present the West Red Lake Gold story. It's been an exciting story since I joined the company, getting on for 2 years ago, and it's particularly exciting right now, I would suggest, because we are so close to getting this thing into commercial production. So I've just shared my screen,
You're
and
good.
I'm going to run through this story reasonably quickly. I'm going to make forward-looking statements. I always do to set the stage, and I'm always happy to take some questions afterwards, and then maybe carry on the conversation by email or on a phone call with anybody who needs to know more following this little introduction. So the reason that West Red Lake exists is because of this. This is one way of looking at how, when you're in a gold bull market, classically, the best way to get leverage to that gold bull market, to get outperformance on an equity front from a gold bull market, is to be in a particular group of companies. And that's the small, almost always small group of companies who have new gold production. So they're just starting out as gold miners, and then they grow as gold miners during that gold market. So you're getting the rising tide of gold, but you're also getting a company that's creating new value, that's adding value in that rising tide environment. That's always been a very, very good way to play gold in a strong market. It's already happening in this market, which is what this slide shows. The blue bars here are new and growing gold miners, and they are already outperforming the gray and gold bars there, which are the GDX and the GDXJ. The red, that's us, and we are lower than the rest because we're putting a mine into production. We're still proving that that mine is going to work, but I suggest that as we create that confidence in the market, there's a lot of opportunity for us to join the outperformer group, and then we have big plans to make sure that we earn the right to stay in that group as this gold market progresses. So let me tell you where we are, where we're going, and why that all fits with the setup that I just laid out there. Our first mine, the mine that we're getting up and running, is the Madsen mine. It's in Red Lake, Ontario. We're halfway through the ramp up process. We turned this thing on at the beginning of June. Our expectation is that we will be able to declare commercial production right at the beginning of 2026. So we're halfway through that ramp up period. There's a few more pieces of the puzzle that we are getting into place during this time frame. Things to do with how we store our waste rock underground. That is now sorted. That happened about a month ago. Next up, we get the shaft going. We expect that in about a month. These are the things that you want to have in place before you say, okay, the mine is running the way that we said the mine would be running. So getting this mine to commercial production is the goal that the market is most focused on, and importantly so. This is what we've been here and been trying to do for the last few years. Our team internally is very confident that we are successfully getting this mine up and running. So we are also therefore focusing on the next thing, which is how do we get bigger? That's the whole reason for West Red Lake to exist. That's why it was founded. And so we're already advancing we're already pulling on the levers to try and grow our production base as quickly as we can. So we're doing some things to see if we can pull more tons out of Madsen over the next little while, over the coming years for sure. See if we can grow production there. And then we have another project called Rowan that's just around the corner. We're pushing as hard as we can to get that into production within just perhaps 2.5 years. And the plan is for that to send its mineralization, not to build a mill there, but to send its mineralization down to Madsen. So that would really step up our production profile. So the market is focused on whether we're going to get Madsen successfully into production. We are already focused on how we're going to grow that production significantly over the coming years, because that's the reason to be here. We are also, in terms of growth, on number 3, always looking to expand the portfolio. We can't become a mid-tier gold miner during this gold market if we don't acquire another asset. So we're always looking for that. We'll see who, what, where, when, if, how that happens, but that is something that is also always underway. Our mine is the Madsen mine. It's basically the middle of Canada, right? The western edge of Ontario. Red Lake's a phenomenal gold district. You can see our 2 projects on the map. Madsen's the lower one. Rowan, the one that we're pushing towards production, is the upper one. And of course, there's a history at the Madsen mine. The Madsen mine is part of Red Lake's history as a gold district, where they have produced 30 million ounces of gold over the last 100 years. Madsen produced 2 million of those ounces in the 40s, 50s, 60s. Then it went dormant for many decades. Then a company called Pure Gold came in, did a bunch of very good work to define a new resource in and around the historic mine, and to engineer and then permit and then build and put into production a new mine at Madsen. Unfortunately, that team did not have enough mine building experience, and so they cut some corners in the actual build and operate part of that. Unfortunately, those cut corners meant that the Madsen mine under that last operator went bankrupt after only 14 months of commercial operations. That gave us the opportunity to come in and buy an asset where we believed in the deposit. We saw a lot of value in the infrastructure. We saw incredible value in a permitted operation, and we understood that we could fix the corners that had been cut. That's what we spent the last 2 years doing, from mid-2023 to mid-2025, and now we are in the ramp-up phase for the Madsen mine. I'll touch very briefly on what went wrong last time. Basically, they didn't do enough drilling to have a sufficiently accurate and high-resolution model of the deposit. Red Lake has a lot of gold. It can be incredibly high grade, but it's not easy gold. It's discontinuous, which means it's, you got to do a lot of drilling to know where along that vein the gold is and is not. And if you don't, you run the risk of mining unmineralized material. That is essentially what happened under the prior operator. Our approach is to do the drilling that's needed to mine accurately and effectively in Red Lake. So we've done 150,000 meters and counting of drilling from underground into the known resource to tighten up the drill spacing, inform that accurate high resolution model, and then be able to mine it effectively. We tested that workflow with a bulk sample before we turned the mine on, and the fact that we were able to reconcile what our models said we would get out of the ground with what we actually got out of the ground within just a few percent, that to us was the green light that we had addressed that basket of things that went wrong. The other basket of things that went wrong was on the infrastructure side. That prior operator, in multiple circumstances, deferred projects. We'll build that later when we have cash flow. Unfortunately, not having those pieces of infrastructure in place meant that their costs were very high. They set up an inefficient mine. And so we bid off all of these capital projects before starting the mine into operations so that we did not face that problem. We have set ourselves up with an efficiently operating mine. And that was the other green light that we needed before we turned the mine back on, which we then did at the beginning of June. We have now been ramping up for, I guess it's been about 4.5 months. The chart on the top there shows tons of ore that have come out of the mine monthly. We are very comfortable with how that is ramping up. Ore tons out the door is the critical path for the Madsen mine. And some of those projects that I referenced, figuring out how to store waste rock underground, and getting that shaft going, these are things that are giving us lots of confidence that we're going to keep marching that up and hit our goal of commercial production in not too long. Okay, so as we get to that goal, as we are able to convince the market that we are a successful new high-grade gold mine in Canada, what's the company worth? That's the question for investors, right? That question is usually answered starting with the official mine plan, which is our pre-feasibility study. We published that in January. It gave good numbers, $500 million NPV, over $90 million in average annual cash flow, and there's good upside at West Red Lake, given normal multiples on those sorts of numbers for a high-grade gold producer. But there's a very important but here. That official mine plan, that pre-feasibility study, was done with a really conservative gold price in building how the deposit was mined. And that gold price, that very conservative gold price, means that it created a mine plan that only took the highest grade bits of the deposit, left the rest of it there, and moved down through the deposit quite quickly, and required fairly selective, which is usually a higher cost kind of mining. That we are not mine designing on that super conservative gold price of less than $1,700 an ounce. So when we mine design on a more normal, well, I don't know if normal is the right word, but on a more up-to-date gold price, this is the kind of change we see. So the images on the left, the blue chunks are what was in the mine plan in that official document. The images on the right is how we're actually mining the deposit. This is what happens when you drill more, usually find a bit more high-grade gold. As you do that, tighten up the drill hole spacing, and then mine design on a modern gold price. And you end up mining more tons. We're gonna mine more of this deposit. We're using a lower cost mining method. We're going to, over the life of mine, produce more ounces, and we have a more efficient operation. So compared to that official document, I suggest that there's pretty good upside in the reality versus the plan. I noted just in passing there that we often return some pretty nice high-grade hits as we do that tightening up of the drill hole spacing. This is just to underline that. I mean, these are obviously some of our standout hits, but it really is important to note that as we tighten up those holes, we often hit high-grade lenses that get missed with the wider space drilling. And this is a reminder of why Red Lake is worth the effort. You got to do a lot of drilling, and be very careful with your deposit model and how you're mining in Red Lake to do it well. But if you put in that effort, the rocks often repay that effort with really phenomenal mineralization. I mean, 10 meters of 114 grams, 12 meters of 60 grams, like 18 meters of 50 grams. These are the numbers that we pull out with some regularity. Red Lake rocks are phenomenal. It's really important for me to also talk about Rowan. So, right, this is the project that's just around the corner. This is the project that we're pushing towards production as quickly as we can. It's not a large deposit, but it is very nicely mineralized. The average indicated grade at Madsen is 7.5 grams per ton. The average indicated grade at Rowan is almost 13 grams per ton gold. It's also a deposit that starts right at surface. It's almost vertical. It's relatively wide. It's nicely continuous. It's like built for mining. It's a thing of beauty. And so we wrapped an initial mine plan around that. We published it in July. The concept is an operation that's just a mine and water treatment facility at Rowan, sending its mineralization to another mill. We expect that to be the Madsen mill, where we already have the capacity to process those tons. And this thing would push out 35,000 ounces of gold a year. We expect Madsen to do approximately 50,000 ounces next year. Hopefully we can step that up in 2027. And then in 2028, the plan is to chunk this on top of that production profile, which puts us clearly in the running to being a 90 to 100,000 ounce per year producer in Red Lake in only 2.5 years time. So that growth profile is not something I believe the market is focusing on right now, and I believe that that's an opportunity for those who do consider it. I'll wrap up here with our share structure, 390 million shares outstanding. We do have a good number of warrants. They're listed in the table because they are tradable warrants, so that is one way that some investors like to play the stock. If and as we're able to continue to justify a re-rate on this stock as we successfully put this mine into production, I suggest that we're going to be able to see some nice warrant exercise proceeds. Also, that chart there shows our trading volume. We trade huge volume, and so as we come up against these warrant expiry dates, I suggest that we have the volume to trade through them. That was the quick version. Arlen.
Perfect. Yeah, you knocked it out of the park. If you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A. We already got a couple here. Madsen deposit hosts 1.65, M&I at 7.4. Curious what percentage of that resource sits above the 800 level, and what's the true width versus intercept?
I don't know the specifics of how much of that sits above the 8 level. I mean, we are mining currently on the 9, 10, 11 level, and we're dewatered down to the 17 level. So, I don't know the distribution. The resource basically goes down to, if we want to shift over and start talking in meters, our resource extends approximately to 1,200 meters depth following the plunge of the deposit. And then there's good scattered intercepts below that, and geophysics and neighboring operations that give us lots of confidence that this thing will continue at depth. And one thing that we want to do, even over the next year, get down a bit deeper, come out with a lateral drift, and start drilling what we think of as Madsen 2.0, which is the second half of this deposit that we really believe continues down there, so that we can start to understand what that could potentially look like as a mine. At some point, there will be another shaft. That shaft could potentially impact how much the scale of this operation. So anyways, I got a little bit off topic there.
Okay. What's a gold linked note?
Yeah, so in March of 2024, well before, this was only 10 months after buying the project, 9 months after buying the project. We were still just getting our feet under us and needed to do a finance, but we had a clear plan to put this thing back into production, needed to access some capital to fund that effort. So we issued a gold-linked note, which is a piece of debt that people could buy, and it is repaid in ounces of gold. And the ounces of gold are set so that the debt is repaid, assuming a gold price of $1,800 US. So each chunk of that is, repaid with, a certain amount of gold. The proceeds from selling that gold above $1,800 are also going to the note holder. So it's a
Oh,
very nice
wow.
piece of paper for the note holders. It isn't a large chunk of our production profile. In 2026, we have to pay back, I think it's about 2,000 ounces into that. In 2027 and 2028, it's about 4,000 ounces a year. And then in 2029, it's about 900 ounces. So in the scale of our production profile, we are exposed to that $1,800 gold, but we are not significantly exposed. And the people who own that paper are very happy. It does trade. So if anybody, it doesn't trade big volume because not a lot of people sell it, but you can always look out for WRLG.nt.u. Was there enough letters there? And that's how you can find the gold link note.
Cool. And then just one more quick question before we got to jump to our next presenter. How far is the Rowan deposit away from Madsen? Are you trucking it? Is the road and infrastructure all in place?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So it's 30 kilometers as the crow flies, but crows can't carry much rock. So it's 80 kilometers on the road around the end of Red Lake. And that
Well,
road does exist. So yes, the
yeah.
plan would be to just truck that.
Yeah, well, I think Pablo Escobar can get people to truck rocks.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Gwen, thank you so, so much for your time. Thanks so much,
Fantastic.
Gwen. Yeah.
Enjoy the day, everyone.
Yeah.
Take care.
Take care.